Alright everyone, it's time for our yearly tradition. Yes, fear-mongering about Iran getting the bomb, and then magically, because they've got it, immediately they are going to bomb at least one of their neighbors, because that's the way that atomic warfare works, as we've seen over the course of the Cold War. As soon as you get a nuke, the only thing that you can think about is who to immolate first. Iran has been rumored since the 1990s to be interested in nuclear weapons development. And boy, let me tell you, they definitely are. There's no quandary about that. Absolutely, Iran would like to have a fat stack of atomic warheads. Because they want to be a major player and have that arsenal, and it's part of MAD. So if a nation has at least atomic weapons, other nations tend to be more reluctant to fuck with them. And Iran wants that deterrent. It's quite clear. Israel wanted that deterrent, and they got it too, partially through stealing U.S. nuclear triggers. They've got an arsenal that's supposedly close to 100 warheads or thereabouts, mostly single megaton weapons. They mount them on missiles, fire them from planes, but they do have them. This was confirmed in a Pentagon report from the mid-'80s that wasn't declassified until last decade, so they've got them. Link in the description. Archived, of course. It's happening again. They're saying Iran is probably only a year away from testing a usable nuclear weapon. Of course, it wouldn't be a full-on nuclear weapon, it would be an atomic bomb. The idea that at their rate of development they're going to figure out how to boost the fission process in short order, I think is spurious. It'd be more in line with what North Korea has. I would note that fewer people are worried about North Korea than Iran in the United States, despite the fact that North Korea actually has atomic weapons. In fact, their last one was pretty good. It collapsed the cave that they detonated it in, created a giant smoldering steaming crater, actually. And then they had to build in a new test site because they accidentally the last one. Now, they've actually got probably 5 to 10 atomic warheads or something like that. Enough to really fuck over the South Koreans if things pop off there. Another reason why I want Trump back in office, because rapprochement was actually a thing for the first time in over a half of a decade, over a half a century. But this is fear-mongering. Stage number 1 of fear-mongering. Iran is not imminently going to be able to figure out how to make such a weapon, and or develop the means to purify material enough to assemble it. Stage 2 of the fear-mongering. Should they get such a weapon, they've only got one, and it took them decades and decades to produce it. I would think that testing it, which would antagonize its neighbors, it would antagonize the Turks, it would antagonize the Israelis. It might make Russia a little bit sour. Putin might be like, I don't know about this. Diplomatically speaking, this will be a little bit more difficult because I can't shield them directly. They just burned up their only actual usable weapon. I'm hoping that he has to call him up. He has to call the Ayatollah. Hey, do you have a couple more of those in reserve? Because I may not be able to protect you against what's coming. And then finally, let's say they test their weapon. They announce to the world, we got 5-6 more atomic warheads. We are now an atomic nation. Who are you going to use it against? It would take a little bit of effort to get all the way over into Israel to deliver it there. That would be the most likely combatant. You're not going to use it against Turkey because they're in NATO. You're not going to attack the Russians or their sphered states because they're part of your same bloc. Pakistan has a much bigger nuclear arsenal, so it'd be suicidal to attack them. Who are you going to attack with it? The Saudis? I'm not exactly sure why people are so concerned. I mean, from here over here in the United States, I'm not concerned mainly because the idea of them creating a miniaturized atomic or nuclear weapon, multi-stage whatever, and being able to deliver it to Vermont, not that you would hit Rutland, it'd be a waste of time, Burlington would be the only logical target, is asinine. It's not going to happen. There are also other nations in the world that already have significant arsenals. The Russians have 2-to-1 missile superiority over the United States, for example. China's got hundreds of such missiles. Israel has about 100. Pakistan and India have, we're not exactly sure, but a reasonable stockpile of at least boosted atomic weapons. There are plenty of nuclear states in the world, and the French, the British, and so forth. Do we worry inordinately about them nuking us? No, not really. No. That's because we understand that they're rational actors. In wartime, by the way, oftentimes what happens is that a state will cast off the leadership of another state as insane. The Eastern Bloc countries did this to the United States during peak Cold War, by the way. Kissinger's madman strategy definitely helped them create posters saying, oh, the great atomic threat. Uncle Sam wants to burn up all of our proud communist citizens, so that's why you need to buy war bonds or invest in this Soviet bank or something like that. Buy local, if you can find something to buy in the breadline, of course. The United States has done the same thing. Looking at Iran as an unstable, deliberately insane actor is totally bogus. Their government functions the same way other mainline governments in the world function. They're not going to commit suicide by testing a weapon, inviting war, even if they have one. They'd probably be more likely to develop such weapons in secret, stockpile them, hope they work if they have to be used, and then later on down the road when they've got a significant enough stockpile, then you test one of them and say, okay, our design works, or oh shit, we just wasted decades of time and hundreds of billions of dollars developing weapons that won't even deploy. Well, back to square one. Shit, the North Koreans are going to invade us. That's basically the long and short of it. I'm not afraid of the Iranians. They're literally on the other side of the world. They're a threat maybe to local nations, but actually lately have been showing more restraint. The Iranians seem to be dismayed by some of Hezbollah's actions in Lebanon recently, actually, which is kind of a new one, actually. Despite them backing them, even with the Houthis, it's like, okay, they give them anti-ship missiles and shit like that, but then they're saying, behind the curtain, they're like, hey, can you calm it down a little bit? It's not helpful. You're not helping the situation. By the way, you keep missing the goddamn destroyers anyway, and the Phalanx system took out one of your fucking missiles. You know, what the fuck are you gonna do? Looks like there's some tamping down going on in the Eastern Bloc. No, it's definitely concerning nuclear proliferation. I wish that we lived in a world where there weren't the imminent possibility of ending the world of man, but that genie was out of the bottle long ago. Our opportunity to put the genie back in was when the United States was capable of churning out a new atomic bomb every other week, and we could have done what Patton wanted to do and roll into Russia. There never would have been a Cold War. Could have subjugated them, ended the Iron Curtain and everything. We could have done it within a year or something like that. Soviets badly depleted, West fresh with lots of combat-ready troops. We've got atomic weapons and nobody else does, although they were developing them actively at the time, but they hadn't been able to deploy one. We could have won. We could have cut the head off of the snake immediately, but we chose not to do so. Since that time, we live in a multipolar world with regards to armaments. We need to deal with that fact and not worry so much about some other nation getting atomic weapons when we're talking about fully modern, multi-stage nukes in the 3 megaton range. Or in Russia's case, they're even bigger. They decided their targeting systems weren't as good, so they just upscale the weapons so that it didn't really matter. It landed 2 miles from the target, it doesn't matter, it still got vaporized. We decided to go with more finesse and quality over quantity, I suppose. And we've been reducing stockpiles, which is good. I'm more worried about China than I would be about Iran at the moment. That's about all. Peace out.